So we're going to get started here tonight. We have so many questions that we want to ask everybody. But the first is, the reason that these three folks are here is because there is a Tennessee Minority-Owned Wine and Spirits Association, of which they are members, plus some other folks. So I'd really like one of you to tell us a little bit about the purpose of the association and how it came about.
So, Tennessee Minority-Owned Wine and Spirits Association was a brainchild from my good friend, Jason Rigel. He is also from Birmingham and a Tennessee State University alum and a member of Omega Psi Phi. Good job. So he wanted to form an association of collective minority-owned wine and spirits so that not only are we selling our product, but we're also building our strength across the U.S., right? And that goes from changing laws as far as how do we distribute. A lot of the laws are really found in, Stacey may talk about this more, but you wouldn't believe how the prohibition really impacted the alcohol industry and how there are a lot of outdated things that go across at the state level as well as the government level. So having that collective that can go in and change the law so that we can distribute and make more profit is huge for us. In this business, the wine industry is not really highly profitable unless you're driving a lot of volume. So when you think about Tito's, there's a reason why you see caseloads. So as a brand that's smaller, it's really hard to really drive for that profit because it's hard to get to that volume distribution that we really need to cover those fixed business expenses and even pay ourselves a salary. So having this association is really more than just selling product. It's being able to change the laws in order to be successful. And it does help too because we can go out and we can support each other because we don't have the funds to necessarily hire a team, do a lot of promos via television, radio, etc. But when we operate as a collective, it might go to a restaurant, he can talk about all of our products and not just his. And the same thing with both Stacey and I. So it's really huge to operate in that aspect so that we can grow together and be successful.
Ogechi, that's great. Which brands are included in the association?
Yeah, so we have a collective of mezcals, tequila, wine, whiskey, and bourbon. So of course we have Reverend's Bourbon with Michael Frazier. We have Leyenda Mezcal with Stacey Thomas. We have Guidance Whiskey with Jason Rigel. We have a Disbelief Tequila out of Memphis, Tennessee, and they're a group. Also another wine, I support all wine brands. This is a Hungarian wine out of Memphis, Tennessee called Gladys Wine. We also have our good friend Clarence. He is Fiore Vodkas, a very smooth vodka. I never liked vodka until I really drank his, because Tito has that bite, but his is so smooth. And then we also have, shout out to Clarence. And then we also have Cheese Society, and they are also whiskey.
Fantastic.
Follow them all on IG, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
I haven't spent so much time tagging folks in an Instagram story in my life. So what do you think have been some of the big wins for your group so far?
I think that one of the big wins for us is, me personally, is the power of collaboration. We move as one, and so when I'm, like she said earlier, if I go to a store, I'm more than just Reverend's Bourbon, you know what I'm saying? I put word in for Twisted Sisters, Leyenda, you know, and so on and so on. And that's the power of collaboration, you know what I'm saying? So I have a voice in places I'm not in that somebody else is speaking for me, therefore I have their reach now, you know what I'm saying? So it's all about getting more tentacles, you know what I'm saying? And plus with us, one of my favorite words in the dictionary is intentional energy. We're all intentional about, you know, pushing each other, making each other better, you know what I'm saying? And so you put the action behind it, like it puts that motivation to me to like go harder, you know what I'm saying? Because I see them doing what they're doing, and like it just inspires me to be better, you know what I'm saying? And it could be vice versa, you know? So I think that's the power. Our biggest superpower is collaboration.
I'll expound upon that as well. Being a part of the organization is huge because this business, guys, is extremely hard. I come from the business from 10 years ago, I'm actually a trained broker and a certified broker. So what I do is I manage a collection or a portfolio of brands. So before I even had my own, I was always in this business selling other brands anyway. And my portfolio is Italian, Japanese. I'm sake certified. So I'm certified to teach about sake and all kinds of things. And I manage a French portfolio, Italian, Japanese, wines, Scotto Cellars in California. And so this is a tough business because I see even from those well-funded third-generational wine and spirits companies, even they have challenges, but they have the funding and they have a budget to have 50 people on staff to handle everything. Well, we don't. So Team Mauser, what the organization is able to do is, again, sometimes I know I lean hard on the organization because I still also work my portfolio because as a new business owner having a fairly new brand, I'm not like in the black yet. I'm not able to actually, totally depend on my one brand. Plus, I don't think I ever want to do that because I'm trained to work a portfolio. What I found with working with my portfolios is that it's better to sell more than one thing. When you go out to see stores and restaurants, they're like, okay, well, what else you got? And if all you have is this one thing, you're like, well, that's my presentation. And they're like, okay. They're used to seeing Sazerac, Diageo. They're used to seeing these huge portfolios. And what I love about Team Mauser is I'm able to say, oh, well, you don't quite like Leyenda? Well, guess what else? I got Twisted Sisters, I got Reverence, I have Disbelief, I have Guidance Whiskey, I have Fiore Vodka. Out of 10 things, you're gonna like something, right? And so I'm gonna have a win regardless. And so that's the power of sticking together, and that's the power of working together and being able to lean on one another because I may be out of the town or out of the country. One of our members is out of the country right now, and he still has representation even though he's in another country because we're always gonna look out for him. One of the other big wins is I was just in Florida recently for a conclave for Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, which is a men's organization that started in college, and now that you have the collegiate and you have the grad chapters. Well, we were asked to come as a collective to present to their national meeting, and it was thousands of people there from one organization and their guests. I met the Florida State Senator, I met a lot of people, and they were like, hey, we love these brands, you all are so cool, why don't you come to the Congressional Black Caucus, and why don't you, so inviting us to more places because they see us as a collective, and it's attractive when you're like, hey, here's my book. And also, we're all minorities, we're all, somewhat young. I like to try to stay young. We all have families, and it's tough. But when you present as a collective and you present as, we have many tools in our basket, then they love it. And so I love working with, I don't think I'd be able to hardly make it without Team Mauser, honestly, because they just really, I think that we just kind of cover each other. You know what I mean? You can't do everything. As entrepreneurs, our budgets are zero, basically. But we're able to cover each other, and where one can't, fix something, we're able to integrate and make it happen.
So Stacey, since you're so steeped in this business, for people who don't know, maybe you could explain what happens. There's the distributor,
Yes.
and then there's the broker, and
Yes.
then there's the restaurants, and then the stores, and
Yeah.
you have to be able to balance all that. And who
do.
really is your customer?
Right. It's so funny. Everybody wants to be in the alcohol business until they're in the alcohol business. I'm telling you.
Make it look fun and easy.
We make it look fun, and it is fun. It is fun, but it's a lot of work. So alcohol is one of the most highly regulated, businesses in the country. And there's a 3-tier system typically, unless you are a control state, like, for example, Alabama, where the state orders it and organizes the sale of it. But it's a 3-tier system, and you have to, so it goes from the winery or the distillery, right? And the winery distillery usually hires a broker or they have a staff or a rep. And that broker, like myself, my job is to find a distributor for that distillery and their book. They may have several brands, they may have a whole portfolio, but so the broker's job, which is my everyday job, the broker job is to allocate a distributor, sell it to the distributor and say, hey, this is the price, this is what it is, this is what differentiates the product, because all these wholesalers, Empire, Littman, Athens, Best Brands, they have thousands of brands too. Literally, they have Hennessy, they have Ciroc, they have Remy, they have, Sky, they have Absolute. They have a lot of brands, y'all. And so they're looking at me like, really? What are you going to offer me? So what brokers do is we have to find ways of saying we're valuable. These smaller brands are valuable, and we would like you to distribute us. From there, once the distributor says, or the distributor is a wholesaler, a lot of people get that confused, but they're the same thing. Once the wholesaler decides that they're going to take you on, then it is your job collectively as the wholesaler, the reps, the management, and the owner to get it in the market. Market is on and off premise. On premise is restaurants, off premise is retail. So it's our job to go out and we're like, okay, we're holding hands together. Now we know this distributor is going to distribute it. And what that means is that the wholesaler gets to put it on the truck, and they actually deliver it. We can't deliver it. It has to go on the Empire truck or on the Lippman truck, and they have to deliver it to the stores because they're licensed to do so. But while they're delivering, we have to go out and sell it. So we're connecting with the reps, with the management. We're saying, oh, let's hop in the car together. While that rep is on their route to go ahead and take the order for Ciroc, to take the order for Remy, we're saying, hey, I'm Stacey from Leyenda. I got this cool brand, and you're selling it to the owner while you're on route with your rep. So that's the 3-tier system. It's distillery, broker, or team staff, wholesaler, and then consumer. So it is a rough road between those 4 things or 3 things. And the main thing is our customer, really and truly, our customer is the wholesaler. And then the wholesaler's customer is the market. That's how they separate the 3 tiers. Mm-hmm. They want to make sure everybody benefits. And I'll give you a rounded out number. Usually that's around 30%. Everybody benefiting somewhere between the margins. It's all about margins and markups. And so it's somewhere between 30%, and everybody has to make their cut, which makes it balanced. And so that's why all of these tiers are needed to make sure everyone profits and profits legally.
You did a great job.
Yes.
You did a great job.
Very comprehensive.
So do retailers want local brands? Are they looking for things that make them look special?
Absolutely. I think that with the local brands, especially in Nashville, we have a strong tourist market, on the weekends. So the Frugal McDougal's, the Cork Dorks and all that, they're pushing local brands to tourists because they can't buy this in Oklahoma or Texas or wherever they're going from. So when you're in a city, they want to get behind the local brands. Like for me, my whole story is not only local, but just statewide. Like I'm from Memphis. I came to TSU, I'm from Nashville, I'm a local firefighter. Like I'm a fabric of the state. So I'm like a purebred Tennessean, so to speak. So when they say local, I'm not just local Nashville, I'm local Memphis, I'm local Knoxville, I'm local Chattanooga. So I'm all Tennessee. So when people come in, like I'm in the airport, and I've seen people just screenshot buying my bourbon, you know what I'm saying, from all over the place, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I have a Google Voice number, and it's on my website. I had a call from somebody from Montana that got my liquor in Nashville. Like, I like you, you know what I'm saying? I want you to come here and do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, I don't even know you. You know what I'm saying? So just those little things just let you know, like, being a local brand and people come from out of town to buy your stuff, it's like, this helps grow the brand as well. And you create those intimate relationship with your customers along the journey. So definitely local brands are being pushed here more than like commercial brands.
Okay, that's good.
That storytelling is so beautiful, and I think that's really, we'll get into the marketing a little bit more, but we love stories, first of all, and it is when she can kind of capture an audience, whether that's the wholesaler or that's the customer, it is really, if they can identify with your story. You guys introduced yourselves, but I'd love for you to talk about each of your brands and, what does distinguish you from another competitor in your same kind of category. Ogechi, you want to start?
Sure. So Twisted Sisters is a service, disabled, veteran, minority, and women-owned brand, which is not typically what you see in the industry. We represent less than 2% of the alcohol industry at the end of the day. But one thing that we like to bring in, this is what I talked to a lot of people when we were tasting earlier, is we like to bring fun to wine. A lot of times when people think about wine, they think about late night, eat a steak, drink some wine, go to sleep. You know, we're like, no. Me and my friends who started it, we like to party, travel. It started with Christy doing our hair in the shop late at night, and we were drinking and turning up. You know, that's what we want of our customers. We want everyone to turn up and just let go, because after you've been at a long day at Assurance, stressed out, you need to turn up, you know. So having that tribe that you can do with your girlfriends was huge for us, and that's what we like to bring with our wine, where we even show people that you don't have to just drink it by the glass. You can create a cocktail with it. So we have cocktails with all of the Tennessee minority-owned wine and spirits. So I have a drink with Leyenda, a drink with Reverence, and it's all mixed in a wine. So it's very versatile. So even when people think about, well, that red is too bitter, I don't like it, like, well, guess what? You can make it a little sweet, you know? So we can make it what you enjoy at the end of the day. And what we would like to do in the future, because staying with that same energy of having a great time with friends, being unique, being different, is eventually have a ready-to-drink cocktail in a can that can be used at the pool or on the boat, etc. That people just continue to feel that energy and vibe of having a great time with your friends, because that's what we were. We were 4 friends that had a great time with each other. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the label, it actually has the different color silhouette ladies, and they represent the different elements of our zodiac. So water, earth, fire, and air. And what we've done historically is the past, we've done limited edition zodiac bottles that we've utilized local women artists to do canvas artwork for those different zodiacs and sell those bottles. And that's something that feels more personable when someone's buying in the store. They're like, I'm connected to that energy. I feel it. Like when I talk about Leo season, my birthday's tomorrow. Yay, Leo season. Like all my Leos always turn up, right? So that's what we're about. That's our differentiator in the market.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, Mike, let's hear about Tennessee bourbon.
Yeah, so with Reverence, what differentiates me from the market is I am a Tennessee bourbon. So everyone has this preconceived knowledge that bourbon comes from just Kentucky, and that's 100% false. And so you can make bourbon anywhere and in the U.S. So as I looked out, you know, what's out there right now, you didn't see a Tennessee bourbon. You always saw Tennessee whiskey. And so I was like, you know, let me create this space and, you know, be the first one to get up in this type of environment or whatever. So Reverence, I'm the first independent black-owned bourbon, Tennessee bourbon ever. And so that's historic context, you know what I'm saying? So you look at the whiskey era, like the history of it, for me to be the first at this point in time, like it says a lot. So that just brings a mystique to it. And with mine, like I said, it's 100% Tennessee. Like the name of my bottle, the style of my bottle is called Nashville. The cork on top of it, there's Tennessee oak. The label on there is made by a Tennessee company. The person who made my label is from Memphis. You know, I was very, very intentional about making my product, you know, from the rap to me, somebody from Tennessee or Nashville or Memphis or a combination of all of it. So that's how I differentiate mine, because mine is about, you know, creating a story. So the name Reverence, it comes from my childhood. So my mom is a military veteran, 27 years in the Army. She was called for active duty after 9/11, and so I was 11 or 12 at the time. My brother's about 16. He stopped playing high school football to take care of me. And I had a younger sister who moved to Texas with my godmom, who was about 5 or 6. So for about a year and a half, I was adulting as a preteen, you know what I'm saying? And me and my brother just trying to figure it out. So that whole dynamic, you know, created my character, you know, showed I can persevere through things, you know what I'm saying? You know, be a greater version of myself even through adversity, you know what I'm saying? And that's what I pay homage to, is to my mom, my brother, for sacrificing like that. So that's what our slogan is pay homage. You know, whenever we take anything, you know, we always taking a shot. It's celebratory. So we never like, we don't shoot nothing, you know what I'm saying? We pay homage. And so that's how we toast with Reverence, you know, with bourbon, and it's a sipping bourbon. And, you know, with mine, it's all inclusive. Women love my bourbon. Stay-at-home women to be exact, because like for real, because every tasting I do, it's a woman that's a stay-at-home wife, you know, watch the kids, blah blah blah. She buying a case. It's not a bottle. She buying a case.
You have your customer
You know what I'm
pegged
saying?
up.
And so I just think like, so how can I keep doing this? You know what I'm saying? So I have curated about 9 cocktails with bourbon, and that's something new as well, because, you know, bourbon is either straight up, you know, if it's on a rock or it's old fashioned. That's usually the top 3. You know, I've made peach mules, I've made blackberry cocktails, I made a strawberry lemonade for the Drunken Love concert. It was called Drunken Love, the cocktail. You can get it at Plain Jane. So like cocktails have been my main thing as far as driving and trying to cultivate the woman market to, like, you don't have to drink it straight. You can actually make cocktails with a bourbon. So that's how I differentiate with my product with the other market.
Okay, so tell people, what's the difference between bourbon and whiskey?
So bourbon is a subcategory of whiskey. So all bourbon is whiskey, but all whiskey is not bourbon. Bourbon has to be at least aged 4 years. It has to be majority makeup of corn. So on the mash bill, it should be at least 51% corn. Reverence is 77% corn. Sweet kernel corn at that. So when you taste it, it's very, very flavorful, very rich in flavor. And so that's why a lot of women like it. But also, with Tennessee whiskey and bourbon, it's a process called the maple charcoal filtration. So your Uncle Nearest, your Jack Daniels, they go through that, and they're considered Tennessee whiskey. Mine does not. So I would never be the same as Uncle Nearest and Jack. I'll always be Reverence Tennessee bourbon. So that's the difference between. And also, whiskey, you can recycle the barrels. I can't recycle my barrels. So every batch, I buy brand new barrels. So it's premium. It's one of the most complex spirits out of all the spirit families. A lot goes into it. So, you know, it's very complex. So that's why I like it. You know, you can get real creative with bourbon.
So how long is bourbon aged?
Bourbon is aged at least.
There we go.
Bourbon.
Nope.
Testing.
There we go.
So bourbon is aged at least 4 years.
So you can't just go into the business like that,
No,
can
you can't. You can't. But the thing is that distilleries, they're making bourbon every day. They're distilling almost every day. So you'll get to a point where they have a warehouse that they have filled up for like 3 or 4 years. And they have bourbon there from 2016 that they haven't even touched. You know what I'm saying? So they're constantly making bourbon. So in the event it's time to pull barrels, they have a large reservoir of barrels to just go to. So that's the good thing about it. So once you want to come in the market, you actually don't have to wait that age range. You can just source your bourbon already aged. You know what I'm saying? So that's the good thing about it.
Awesome.
Stacey, I want to hear all about La Leyenda Mezcal.
Let's see, is this working? Testing?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I am part owner of Leyenda Mezcal. I always make sure I talk about Alejandro, which is my partner in Mexico, out of Zacatecas, that actually brought Leyenda to me, actually, through one of my husband's line brothers or fraternity brothers. And what's so funny is that we almost did our deal via WhatsApp, that I was like, how are we doing this? But anyway, Leyenda means the legend. It's Spanish for the legend. And Alejandro in Mexico, he lives there. He came to me and said, hey, I want you to try this this mezcal. It's actually, we've been playing with it in my mom's restaurant and all these things. And I said, okay. So we've been playing with different batches. I think his brother owns an agave farm. And anyway, they had been playing with it in his restaurant. I said, okay. So we were all talking on Zoom. It was like 4 or 5 of us. And they sent it to me. And I was like, oh, this is pretty good. It's like, okay, we got something else. So they sent it to me. So anyway, after, trying them, and we were like, I said, you're onto something. I was like, but let's make some changes here and there. Let's do this, let's do that. Anyway, he had come up with the name Leyenda. And I loved the name because Leyenda is in the female, tense, plural and female. And he said when he thought about Leyenda, which meant the legend, he always thought about his mom and how she was a legend to the community. And I was like, oh my goodness, I love that, because I feel like, you know, porch ladies, where I grew up in the South, in Birmingham, they always took care of us. And so usually women are legends. They're not always recognized as legends, but they are. The mother, you know, the daughters, the grandmothers, you know, they're legends. And so we collaborated, and I was like, yes, this is it, this is it. Alejandro didn't know anything about distribution, anything about the United States business, nothing. And I said, okay, let's partner up. He was like, no, I don't want to do this unless we partner up. And so we partnered up, and I ended up building an importing business. I was like, I'm already in this thing deep into it. Let's go deeper.
Why not?
Let's go deeper. So then I said, I'm just gonna start an importing business, imported Leyenda. We worked on labels. We did a lot of things in between, and we don't even have time for all of that. But yeah, that's the legend. And what we try to do is with our messages, it's inspiring the legend within anybody and everybody. It's no matter whether you are, you know, taking care of your neighborhood, your community, you know, your daycare, your job. It's fueling the legend within you, inspiring the legend within you. And that's what we try to do. That's the whole story. It's wherever you can be your authentic self. Take your authentic self and become a legend. That's what Leyenda is all about. And so the differentiating factor is a lot of people think that mezcals are all smoky, and they are not. Mine is not. And so it tastes, I mean, you would think it's just a tequila, right? But kind of similar to what Mike was saying, you know, like it's like all mezcals are tequilas, but not all tequilas mezcal, because mezcal is actually a classification that has to go through a different certification. Mine is made in Zacatecas. If you are a tequila, you're made in Jalisco or one of those regions in Mexico. You're not made in Zacatecas, and you don't have to go through the bureaucracy of taking another step to get certified, which is another difficult step. And so, but it's how it's made, and it's also, it does not have to be smoky. When it's a smoky version, a lot of times it's made in the claves underground. If it's not, it's made the traditional standard way, which creates just like a taste like a regular tequila. Often people compare mine to, or compare Leyenda to Clase Azul, which is another super premium tequila. And so Leyenda is super premium. It is $69.99, worth every penny. But it is super premium, and it's all about fueling the legend. Anybody can be a legend if they are impacting their community greatly and they're being their authentic self. Leyenda is actually all the agaves aged 7 to 8 years before it's even plucked. It is 100% blue agave, and in Zacatecas, the land is really, really red, and the agave is actually blue. If you see other agave in like Jalisco or other places, it's like greenish, and the dirt, the terroir is like brownish. So it is pure 100% blue agave, and it actually is blue. And so it's the best kind of agave, and we let it grow, which is why it's also small batch. You're not gonna have a lot of it. A lot of other tequilas, I'm not saying names, but they start plucking them at you know, a year old. A year, sometimes even less, 2 years. And they start pruning off we wait until they're 7 years. And so, you know, it's not great for production-wise, because of course you have to wait, or either source from other agave farms that are also letting the agave mature. And that's where the authentic part of Leyenda comes from. It's like, be your authentic self, be pure, let the agave age to the appropriate aging, and then you go ahead and start making the tequila, you know? So that's what Leyenda is all about.
So I just want y'all to think for a minute, because we have had a master's course in branding already, right? Because we've heard 3 beautiful stories, very different, about how they differentiate their products. And I think that there is so much to be said for having an origin story and being able to tell it well, that's where your marketing starts. But if you could, I'd love for each one of you to talk a little bit about who you think your typical customer is, and what is the strategy for reaching those people.
So our typical customer is a female between the ages of 25 to about 55. They our customers work, Mike, but they'll stay at home and work, but they will work too. And then there are also women who like to go out, travel. Typically, we see a lot of our customers, they'll attend Predator events, basketball events. They'll go to the symphony. So they do like to be out and about. So that's why we like to have our wine at different restaurants in addition to the liquor store, because we actually do activate at the restaurants. So at some of the restaurants, we have those craft cocktails on the menu, and it was so funny, maybe 2 weeks ago, PH Craft Cocktail Bar, which is here in Nashville. What's the area that's close to? It's close to Soho House. I always forget that area.
We have
Wedgwood.
Houston.
Yeah.
Wedgwood, Houston. So there were girls who were at PH. They had our cocktail, which is called Damn, That's Twisted. They had our cocktail there. And I happened to be doing a tasting all the way in Nolensville, about, 20 miles away. And they ended up at the liquor store at Barrels and Brews. And I was doing a tasting. They said, oh my gosh, I just had your wine and a drink. And I loved it. I definitely want to buy a bottle. So it really does help to be able to convert those people who go to restaurants or even the airport, and then they can be those buyers that happen to be at the liquor store later on or go to our website. So we do look for those people who really do go out and about, because going back to our original point of have a good time, have fun, don't just drink a steak at night, drink a glass of wine with a steak at night.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So how did you get those craft cocktails in the restaurants?
Really, it was having a conversation. So a lot of times what we were challenged with when we went to the restaurant was our price point on our wine bottle. So a lot of restaurants typically want to buy the well-known wine brands like Josh, which I'm like, Josh will give you a headache. Drink our bottle, you'll still be headache-free. But no, sorry, Josh, I'm not talking bad about you. No defamation of character. But seriously, so a lot of times they do look for those bigger brands. So being a smaller brand, we have to understand that, one, it does cost money to have inventory on the shelf. So we want to help the restaurants move that inventory. So that's what really drove me to start sitting with the restaurants and saying, hey, you can sell it by the glass, but you can also deplete it with a cocktail. So we create a cocktail for your menu. Now you recognize the economies of scale, right? So you're being able to be very profitable and continue to turn our product.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I did say that my number one customer was stay-at-home women, but that wasn't necessarily
The
my
only
target. But my target customer is, the millennial to the older age, very reserved person, cigar aficionado individual that also likes the cocktails and likes to chill and relax. So they can be anybody, you know what I'm saying? But specifically speaking, my product does well in the cigar bar. So like that's my staple, because I do have a cigar paired with it that's called Reverence, and just a vertical scale with the product, because that's the culture that goes with bourbon, which is the cigars and all that stuff. So that's my target market. That's been good so far.
Tell us about the airport.
The airport. So we're in the Tennessee Tribune store on the southwest side, Gate C, and pretty much in the if I'm gonna say it right, you have to be Tennessee bottled to be in the airport as a whole. And so they have my brand, they have all our brands in there or whatnot, and you get that tourist traffic. You also get that travel traffic, because I've had people that's they can't get it anywhere else, or they have to order it online. They'll fly out, the next day or whatever, and just pick it up at the Tribune store. So that's been a good thing with the airport, because it's a lot of people I know outside of Tennessee that want to get my product in. They fly in Nashville for homecoming or graduation, any family functions or a concert or whatever, because we're getting a lot of concert traffic now. So that's when they used to pick up my bottle. So that's the good thing with the airport, is having those friends from outside that come in, they can still pick it up and take it home with them.
I always take Tennessee products or Nashville products with me when I go. I just went to the Philippines and I brought Goo Goo clusters and Jack Daniels because I needed the little ones, or I would have gotten a couple big bottles. But yeah, and so it's perfect. It's not just folks coming, outside of Tennessee in. It's an opportunity for us to take it out too.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons.
I was just gonna say one cool thing too about the airport, in case you guys didn't know, we are getting Customs Border Patrol, which means we will truly be an international airport. And what it also means is duty free. So we will be in the duty free stores
that's great.
once that happens.
We need some snaps for this.
And I'll also speak to one of the reasons why, it's kind of piggybacking on one of the reasons why it's so important to be a local brand. Actually, my brand, I'm going to pivot a little bit and create another brand that's going to be a little bit lower priced than Leyenda. But I'm creating a brand just so that it can be bottled in Tennessee. And here's why. Because we were actually all sold in Tennessee because we were Tennessee owned, locally owned. It didn't necessarily have to be Tennessee bottled at first. And so Leyenda was sold in the airport for an entire year until they, said, hey, you got to be also bottled. Tequila cannot be bottled in any other country but Mexico. And so that created a little bit of a challenge for me because I was like, oh my God, I got so much business in the airport. There's such great visibility and great marketing being on those shelves. And it was so important to me that I've talked to my partners and talked to more people about, hey, I need to develop a Tennessee brand. And sometimes in this business, you have to pivot a little bit. You may have to change your label. You may have to decide to change your bottler. You may have to change your blend. There's a lot of things that happen in this business, and all brands do it. They do it under your nose, and you don't even know it. But I think some young brands, they get a little bit nervous and scared to make a change. They're like, oh, I got to do this, got to do that. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I was fortunate to know it's okay because I work for brands already that have made hundreds of changes, and they're just fine. But that impact was so important to me, and being that I live here, I have children here, I know I'm going to be here, my husband's here. I said, it's important for me to have a Tennessee brand. So I'm going to also, meaning it has to be bottled here. So I'm creating another brand. It'll be cheap. It'll be probably somewhere around, $30, $40 to be bottled here. And it won't be tequila, but it'll be an agave spirit. And so I know you guys probably have heard about the wave there that, now you can have a beverage that tastes like a tequila, but it's not categorized as tequila because, of course, the terroir is not made in Mexico, but it's made in California, or it's made somewhere else, but it's made from agave. You just can't, almost like champagne. Champagne, if it's not made in Champagne, France, it's not champagne, it's sparkling, or it's Prosecco, or it's Cava. If it's from Spain, it's Cava. It's from Prosecco, it's from Italy. You cannot, they have the terroir classification down. That's how tequila is. So I said, Tennessee has made such a big impact. Tennessee is blowing up on the map everywhere. I have people coming in from California, and before they go, just like you, they're like, before they go back home, they're like, Stacey, okay, give me a collection of all the Tennessee whiskeys. I'm like, what? Okay, let's go out to all these stores. And no, they are dead serious, and they take home boxes or ship boxes, all Tennessee. Tennessee is on the map now. And so sometimes you have to pivot. Sometimes you have to create another brand. Sometimes you have to change your tops. It's okay as long as you go through it. Now, what was the original question?
So it's about your marketing strategy and who your customer is.
Okay. So my customer is someone who wants something a little exquisite. Okay. So my customer is kind of that clase azul. They're willing to spend a little bit more for super premium, for small production, super premium. And so very sophisticated. And I had to be real with myself. I was talking to Alejandra, and I was like, I had to think about it. Like, would I buy a $70, tequila or mezcal every day? One of the challenges has been educating people that all mezcal is not smoky. So when they see it on the shelf, I do tastings a lot at Midtown Cork Dorks on Church Street, and they're like, oh, no, I don't want it smoky. It's smoky. And I said, it's not smoky. But that is a speed bump on the shelf that I had to really kind of, reckon with, that if they're just seeing it on the shelf, they're going to immediately think it's smoky. And then what about that customer that wants smoky, and they buy mine because they think it's smoky, and they're like, oh, this isn't smoky. The good thing is that it's still really delicious. And so I've had so many people be like, you know what, I was looking for smoke. I taste a little bit at the end, but this is just an excellent product. So the quality of the product absolutely matters. But my customer is sophisticated. They want a little bit of luxury, and they truly love full-grown agave tequila. They want blue. Right out the gate, we won We won double gold from the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, which is very hard to do. But the quality is there. And so, but with that high quality comes small production, and also high price. So anyway, that's my customer. Luxury, refined, someone who appreciates. These are tequila lovers. These are agave spirit enthusiasts, and they love a great product. And so that is my customer. My marketing strategy mostly is tastings, because if you don't taste it, you have no idea that it's not smoky, and then you don't know the quality of it. I think a lot of people, if you're everyday like me, and most people in Nashville, they're used to buying something around a $40 tequila. They're usually not going higher than that unless they absolutely know. And so that has been my challenge. And my marketing strategy is liquid to lips, liquid to lips, liquid to lips, liquid to lips. And once you taste it, it's a done deal.
So y'all were just talking, and it made me think. One of the first podcasts that we did was with Beth Seishan from Gugu. And their strategy was to, instead of trying to be all over the United States, was to have a presence in Nashville for the very same reasons I hear you talking about, because sometimes we overlook the fact that we are such a major destination that we're kind of like the crossroads. And once people come here and they try our products, then they will be hooked on them and want them other places too.
Yeah. Tennessee is a brand now. It's a brand.
It is a brand.
It's a brand now.
I love telling this story. We moved to Tennessee, to Nashville in 1992, and my family, we were at that time moving to the state of Tennessee. No one knew Nashville. They didn't know Columbia. They didn't know any of it, right? And now, I mentioned I was in the Philippines, and I'm talking to this guy about vinyl records at a Sunday market, and he's like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I say, "Nashville." And he was like, "Oh yeah, Tennessee, right?" And I'm like, so much has changed in these 30 years of like, nobody knew. We couldn't point out Tennessee on a map other than it's somewhere down here, to Nashville, and this being this critical place where.
But they did know Jack Daniels back
They
then.
did know Jack Daniels, absolutely.
Even if they didn't know where it was made. Yeah.
We talk about marketing to women on this podcast, and you guys are obviously doing this really well. And I'm curious to know, did you have an idea of who you thought your customer was, and then as you kind of rolled out your product, you're like, oh wait, it's actually this? Or did you think it was going to be women, and that we were making 85% of all the consumer purchasing decisions?
No, seriously, yeah. One thing too, just speaking on women, and this something I just recently learned, is that by 2030, 2/3 of wealth in America will be managed by women. Oh.
Major snaps.
So yeah, I think that's cheers to women. I feel like we knew we wanted women to be our target market. We do have a good percentage of men, but it's about 25 to 30%, but majority women. And it's really because of the collective that I was mentioning earlier, and how we just join together and we have so much good time together. And sometimes you do need to walk away from your husband, boyfriend, brothers, and just say, hey, I just need my girl time, right? So I think, being able to really target those women because they spoke to who we authentically were meant a lot to us. And one big thing for us, where we were all mothers, some of us were single mothers, but at the end of the day, we were all moms, and we could connect with the complexity of being a working mom, being a mom that owns their own business, and then at the same time, having all of those different list of things that come with being a woman at the end of the day. So having that true authenticity was true for us, and it allowed us to really, even now, walk in our purpose and have that relationship with other women, connect with them on that level.
Yes, I didn't have a plan for women. I didn't, because I didn't know women would drink bourbon like they do now, but obviously that is true, so I made a pivot, I say about I say about around the beginning of this year, you know what I'm saying? And I wanted to get into the cocktail space. And you know, here in Nashville, you have a lot of speakeasies, a lot of like little small, little, you know, hip pocket type bars, and the bartenders in there are like, you know, premium, you know what I'm saying, top notch, you know, curators. So knowing the market in Nashville and knowing that, you know, women like my product, I gotta make the connection, you know what I'm saying, make the chemistry happen. And so now every day, you know, my wife, she's a bartender, so like now I'm looking at getting all the liqueurs and just go to experiment and just start creating cocktails. So, you know, my whole thing is like if I create like nice, flavorful cocktails, I know a lot of women are gonna drive me more to it because it's not only bourbon, but like I like nice, you know, elegant looking drinks, you know what I'm saying, for lack of a better word, bougie. So
Bougie self.
yeah, so like, you know, I've made that pivot, and so you know, I've been getting with a lot of bartenders, you know, to create cocktails and you know, see what's the woman's palate, you know what I'm saying, because I know they don't like an aggressive bite on the back end of stuff. You know, that's why they like mine, because mine is not aggressive, it's not a strong bite, it's consistent all the way through. So to have that in my back pocket now, you know, let's take it to the next step. So I think that's gonna be my whole thing as far as like targeting the woman market, you know.
Yeah, you guys are talking, you know, these themes I hear are really, you know, the storytelling, you've got unique stories, you're selling this kind of experience, right? You talk about you want your, you know, you and your girlfriends are having this when you're out, you want this to be on a boat and that your customer is out, right? And you're like, hey, they want this. My mom would call it, if she's listening to this, she's always like, can we go somewhere and have a pretty drink? And that's how she orders at the bar. And I'm like, Mom, I used to be a bartender. I'm like, Mom, please don't go to this bartender and ask this person for a pretty drink. But it's true, right? It is. It's like you know, you want to feel like, oh, somebody made this for me. I didn't make it at home. And then it's delicious, right? Which is like, as long as the product is great, it's going to sell itself.
And then also like logistically it makes sense because like now you see, when you look at the bar now, you see the drink prices, they're getting like ridiculous now. You know, you're paying $20, $25 for a cocktail. So like a Jack and Coke or a Crown and Coke, you're like, no, like I'm not gonna pay that for something basic. Yeah, you know, something basic. So I mean, you know, engineer something real nice, you know, let me see you make it, shake it up.
Shake
you
some
know.
egg whites on top.
Yeah, like mash up the mint, you know what I'm saying,
there.
muddle, like they want to see all that. So like when you go on these bartenders now, like they got all these supplies and tools, you kind of get that experience like you say. So like you actually see the drink being made and like, you know, I appreciate it now. So I'm willing to pay $20 plus a $10 tip. You know what I'm saying? Because I see like you put a real effort into this. You know what I'm saying? So that's my whole thing. Just, you know, moving with the market and adjusting and pivoting, like Stacey said. You know, so you got to adjust with the times.
Yeah, pivoting is critical.
And I think when I first started out, I really thought I knew that I would have a little bit of a higher tier of a customer, but I was honestly thinking like everybody's gonna love this, everybody's gonna buy it because it's just so good. But I'm in the business, so I think I'm just trained to think that, and I'm trained to sell based off quality, you know, not necessarily price. And so I came out the door like everybody's gonna love this, everybody's gonna buy it. It's just too amazing. And then it was like, I realized that, and one of my distributors told me, actually my distributor, Littman, told me, there's like, well, Stacey, yes, they buy all the tequila that's $30 and $40, you know, not $70. So I had to really, who I thought was my customer, which was like everybody, really was not. It was really these people who truly knew agave, truly knew the plant, truly knew the taste profile, and truly appreciate. These are tequila enthusiasts. And so that's who now I have to kind of pivot. I'm like, so when I'm doing tastings, I'm like, do you like tequila? Do you love tequila? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where you have to be almost a fanatic. And they, after they taste it, it's a sipping tequila, it's a sipping mezcal. So you don't even have to make cocktails with it. It's so delicate and refined. You can just kind of sip it while it's cold, right? While it's chilled, and there's no bite, no nothing. And so once they taste it, I'm talking, I'm like, oh, Leyenda. They're like, oh, no, sold. It's done. Because they truly love it. And they're like, no, we've tasted thousands of tequilas, and this is one of the best we've ever had. And so that's how I figured out that was my clientele, and I really had to kind of really narrow my scope on who I was selling to, which is again why I'm also building another brand that's going to be a little bit of a lower tier, because I do want to kind of get everybody. But yeah, I had to change. And then to speak to one more thing is that, you know, when it comes to the cocktails, my partners here are talking about cocktails. It's so important to land a great cocktail on premise or at a restaurant. One case in being, because I am a broker, I also broker this vodka called Square One Vodka. And they have a very popular cocktail in, the restaurant just left my mind, but the restaurant that's on the J. Alexander, okay? So there is a cocktail at J. Alexander called Fleur de Lis. It is so pretty. It's in a martini glass. It has a little flower in it.
I know that cocktail.
Yes, it is. And guess what? That cocktail has been on the J. Alexander menu for 8 years straight.
Wow.
8 years in a row. And when I brokered it first in, it was put on that menu shortly after. But what happens with restaurants is if they have a program, they have a bar program, and they know exactly how many to the ounce, how much they pour in each glass is going to make them the revenue or the profit that they need their whole bar to make. And they measure it. That's why when you see them, if you see them closing down, a lot of them will put pin marks on their bottles, because that's also measuring what they have, but also it's calculating the profit margins. And so I realized that these cocktails are built, and I learned from my distributors too, that's what your relationship with your distributor is so key. Because once you get to really know your managers and they start being your friend, they'll tell you more insights as to what's going to make you stick and stay on a menu, on a bar list, what's going to make you stick and stay also retail. And you have to sometimes you have to pull back and say, I'm not going to try to go to every store. I'm going to go to the stores that's going to really be beneficial for me, or it's going to really sell my brand. But they have that cocktail was so successful. I said, I've got to make a cocktail that's going to stick and stay for 8 years like that. No matter what, if nobody else orders Square One Vodka, J. Alexander is going to order it for all their locations. And they made that cocktail so well made and so consistent that it stick and stay. And so that's the goal for us, is to create cocktails that are going to stick and stay. Because it's a waste of time to get your cocktail into a bar and then it's gone 3 months later. You know, I'm like, I spent all that time creating that amazing cocktail and then just gonna replace it with something else. And so there's a science to it, and there's a science, there's a formula, and I think that as we grow, we're refining, our skill set, our mixability. We're, all the applications wise when it comes to cocktails, we're trying to find something that's going to stick and stay. Once we find that, then we're on the road to success for sure.
Yeah, that sounds exhausting, because I feel like you could run around trying to make a cocktail recipe for all of the different, right? Each restaurant's going to have its own customer base, and you could drive yourself crazy doing all of this, right? Yep. So have you said, you know what, no, we're not gonna worry about this type of restaurant because it's not gonna work there, or has that happened yet, or?
It hasn't happened for me. My cocktails, they're for most places very original, but my more creative, more the speakeasy. I let them do their thing, because they know the crowd, they know the pour count. They know what meshes well with a bourbon. Mine is a corn-based heavy, so they're not going to use a lemon or a lime or something like that. They're going to use more peach, more blackberries, and things like that to break down and actually create a good chemistry with the bourbon. So a lot of people, not me, they do that. You know what I'm saying? That's their craft. And so once something becomes your craft, it's not even a headache. You know what I'm saying? You enjoy making cocktails. I enjoy tasting bourbon, so before I started, I was trying about 300 bourbons, just doing bourbon trails. And of course my tongue got I got inebriated, but when people describe and break down what's in this one little shot glass, it's okay, I don't want that much in my bourbon. I don't want a heavy rye, I don't want a oaky or a smoky, I want a more barrel and more reserved, more refined, product. And so once you get into it and you learn the craft, it's not even a headache. You just appreciate it. It's art. We're all entrepreneurs. We're creators. And so you just stay in that creative space.
So I'm real curious because I know in the bourbon world, there are crazy bourbon collectors and bourbon clubs. Does the same thing exist in the tequila and mezcal world?
Now, tequila last year was number 3 in spirits as far as growth in the United States. Surprisingly, number 1 was soju. It was a Japanese spirits are really climbing. Soju was number 1. But anyway, yes, tequila is growing in popularity. They're not quite where they were with bourbon. I feel like bourbon is where kind of craft beer was a few years back, where everybody wanted craft beer, and I was in the business at that time too. Now, bourbon and whiskey is just everywhere, and they do have clubs. Now it's starting to come, and I knew I knew tequila was changing. Tequila and mezcal were changing when in Miami they started ordering bottle service being reposado tequila. That started being bar service. And when I saw that in Miami about 2 years ago, I was like, it's coming. It's coming. And so because I'm like, it's not just champagne or vodka or whatever, it's now reposado, which is even more intense than the blancos. And so now they're coming. They're not we're not where bourbon is, but it's absolutely soaring. And now I think this year so far, year to date, tequila has been up another 30% from last year, which is astronomical growth. So I can see what's going to start happening is probably mezcals are coming up. There's not, because if you go into a store now, you don't see a lot of mezcals. You see a very small section, which is why I said we need mezcal, because I don't want to be in the huge tequila category because there's just so many. And I already know I'm already in this business. My mindset is a little different because I'm like, I do this every day. I know. And so, but I wanted to do something different. I didn't want tequila. But now, so I was able to set myself Leyenda set aside. So it tastes like tequila, but it's categorized as a mezcal, so I can play both games. But the clubs are starting, especially when it comes to the country clubs and when it comes to the high-end, the very high-end nightclubs. Because now they are wanting like exclusive, different, unique. People are now buying, when I see people buying more Clase Azul, which are those bottles that are in ceramic, you see more of those now on like everyday shelves. So now I'm like, okay, yeah, it's coming. So I'm definitely expecting more in the next 5 years for tequila and especially for mezcal. And I can expect the clubs. I think the clubs are gonna definitely start coming, like the wine clubs, like the bourbon clubs. They're definitely coming, and now that there's a wave of agave spirits being grown in the United States, I think you're going to start seeing it too, because they can't categorize it as tequila or mezcal, but they're going to call it agave spirit. And so you'll start seeing that as well.
So this is a really complex industry. I think you can hear that. We're getting to the end of our time here, but I thought if we could have sort of what they call a lightning round of telling me and Melinda, like, what is the one marketing thing that you've done that has propelled your business? So Ogechi, can we start with you?
Sure, and while we're here, feel free to go and pour yourself a glass of wine while we're sitting here. Don't feel like you have to just be so, we can't drink. Drink. That's my marketing strategy. Drink. I would say one of the things that really propelled us from a marketing standpoint was utilizing the PR agency and getting into more newspaper articles, as well as magazine articles, and then of course, being on the news. So when we had those channels that really showed our visibility to a wider audience, we started to get people who would reach out to us, people who shopped on our website, people, even liquor stores would connect and say, who's your distributor? We want to bring you in. So I feel like that was huge for us to do that. It definitely comes with a pretty pricey sticker tag. So we weren't able to do it as long as we wanted to do it, but we did do it for 6 months, and we saw a lot of growth from that. And that helps us to get to that volume that I mentioned. The one thing that we want to work on is really continuing to build what we consider our loyal, diehard tribe of customers. Because what we've seen too, I know you asked about restaurants. So what we found when we were going out, initially we tried to sell to larger chain restaurants, but it just didn't work for us. So the Del Frisco's, et cetera. But when we started to focus on smaller cocktail bars, smaller restaurants, that loyalty was so huge where I don't have to physically be in a restaurant for them to talk about our product, for them to reorder our product, and for them to sell our product. And that helps take a lot of stress off of me and my business partner, because we can't be everywhere all the time. And for us, we have a whole nother business. So I think those are some of our key marketing strategies, and that's what we want to continue to do this year and going into 2024, is really building and refining our customer niche to the point that we have what they call a cult following.
Yeah, there you go.
For me, it was like I said, like my thing was the cigar bars and the one-on-one interactions, and also, I want to say my website. My website, I got it built. I had a regional website from Wix, one of my friends, and then on my frat brothers, he has not a digital company, a web design company, tech company. And so one of his biggest clients is Five Guys, YMCA Middle Tennessee, so he built all of their websites. So the cachet was right there. So as soon as he built it, people just coming out of nowhere asking me about my product, iHeartMedia, the radio station, the news, like she said, just having these platforms reach out. But like what drew them in was, my website, my visibility. And then, my story, everybody likes my story because it's personable, it's relatable. I'm not a celebrity or anything like that. Like, I'm a common blue collar working person in Nashville, you know what I'm saying? So for me to be a bourbon owner and also doing that, it's just that as somebody that's doing what I'm doing, working a 9 to 5 or whatever, but he's still trying to accomplish his dreams and aspirations as an entrepreneur. So my thing has been the one-on-ones and the website. It's been my biggest marketing thing.
Right.
I think that my business, I remember in the very beginning when I first launched, I had a big boom. Originally, like, it was huge. And so I think that mine has come in waves. I think when I first launched and we had a lot of videos, and I think the interest in a female Mezcal owner, that was huge. And then I started getting a little bit more videos where influencers were holding my bottle, holding the Leyenda bottle, and saying, hey, this is one of the brands in Tennessee, a locally owned Tennessee brand. I saw a huge wave of business there, and some stores picked up my bottle without me even knowing it.
Oh, wow.
I didn't see it until later on. I was like, oh, I didn't know you carried Leyenda. And I said, I need to look at my depletion reports. They're like, oh yeah, somebody came and asked for it, and they bought 2 bottles. And so my success has come from waves of marketing online, I think via influencers. And then I think the last wave came when we started doing more events, like big fraternity and sorority events, because it drew a huge crowd. So I think I've had waves, and now we're getting ready for more PR. Like, I think now I'm ready for PR. I think my strategy was a little bit different because, again, I am already in the business. So I think once I started, like, kind of narrowing my focus to the stores that really do well with my brand, they started depleting more and more and more cases. So I didn't have to stretch out so much and do tastings everywhere. I started narrowing my focus, and those stores started doing really well. And so, and then I started advertising tastings more, like I have a tasting this weekend. And I think those tastings really, really help. So I think influencers and a lot of big group events is what propelled my business.
So you realize that different ways promote brands differently. So just like everybody's got their own story, they have their own way to market their product, which I think is really interesting and good news for companies that are starting out. It's not cookie cutter.
At all. And I will piggyback on that and say, I love this business, but it is not, again, it's not an easy business. I think that people look at it from the outside and thinking that it's one thing, but there's so many layers to it, and it takes years. And so I always say, if you're new in this business, don't get discouraged. You just may have to turn left, right, try something high, low, underground. You have to do a few things to kind of really get there. But what you think it is, it's not. It's a lot of relationships. I lean heavily on my distributors because they are the ones that can really drive it, those relationships, and it's a relationships business. And I do mine in layers. Like I'm just now starting to think about more PR, news articles, TV. I didn't think about it at first because I was like, no, I don't need, none of my wineries or distillers ever did that. They never worried about press. They were just like, let's dig deep first, get some traction, and then we start to get a little bit more press if it comes our way. But they just kind of like they're like little moles. They kind of just kind of build their business, and they're sold in every state now in the United States. And so I kind of take their model and try to do that. But everybody has their own system, and there's something different that works for everybody. But don't give up. Keep going, keep pivoting, keep turning until you get it right.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
flexibility is always key, right? So we ask each of our guests this, and we'll do one more lightning round before we wrap here, but we would love to know, what was your first job, and what did you learn there or then that you apply now today? Ogechi, you want to start?
Sure. When you say first, we're not saying like Taco Bell and high school.
We have had responses from across the board, from like babysitting to, being a lifeguard to like my first job out of college. So you can take that however you'd like. If you learned something at Taco Bell, then share it. Otherwise, you can go into your first professional job.
Well, I would say my first salary job was at Asurion, and I feel like my experience at Asurion in supply chain prepared me for what I do today as a business owner, primarily because I was able to, in essence, grow up in supply chain. And not just from a standpoint of locally here in Tennessee or even in the U.S., but globally. So my experience and my relationships across the globe, I can literally email people right now. I was chatting with a friend in Dubai, talk to people in the Philippines all the time, as well as I've hired people in the Philippines to do our social media. I have suppliers in China and Vietnam, and Asurion really taught me the ins and outs of products, and how Stacey was saying a lot of times you have to pivot, and it's definitely true with your physical product. Mm-hmm. The wine that you see on the table today is not the same wine that came out the day that we launched. So the label has changed, even to the point that the most recent bottle is completely different than the bourbon barrel aged red blend. And that knowledge of working at Asurion in supply chain, even though in the moments of Donna's not in here, customer escalations where we will have to purge inventory, work with legal, recall products. That all taught me how to be flexible and think about, even though I don't know everything today at this moment, not to look at things that happen in the future as something bad or a failure, but look at them as something that would improve my product, improve my brand, and improve my business, because then I can always update processes, I can improve the product, and I can continue to make something that the customer will enjoy and have a great time experiencing.
That's awesome. Mike, how about you?
So my first job, I've been a hustler my whole life. So my first job, I was about 10 years old. I used to cut grass, and like $20 a yard, you know what I'm saying? Hot sun. So, and then I went from that to running the clock at a gym, making like $12 a game, you know what I'm saying? So what those taught me was hard work. Nothing comes easy. I think that I had goals in mind like at the time, like I think it was like 16, 17, I was trying to get a car. And so like I was probably working maybe 18 games a week, and I just saved up like 6 months to buy my own car. And so it just taught me, however small or big, you make it, how much money you make, you know what I'm saying, you can make it work, you know what I'm saying? You just gotta, strategize, be flexible, you know what I'm saying, have a plan. And it comes with hard work, but for the most part, I learned how to be good with my hands, be resourceful, you know what I'm saying? Like, that comes with building relationships, building, bonds, and also, like, maintain those relationships, because really that's the true value in all this, you know what I'm saying? It's not the money or, what you charging on the price. It's really the relationships, you know what I'm saying? Without that, you can't do none of these. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of really the main things I learned, you know, cutting grass and doing all that, because a lot of people like, nah, don't cut my grass. I cut my own grass, you know what I'm saying? But some looked at me and was like, man, you 10 years old with a lawnmower on the side, you could have been doing something else, you know what I'm saying? But you out here cutting grass. So that's one of the main things that it taught me, was just a work ethic.
The work ethic. That's awesome.
My first real salary job was in Atlanta, Georgia, when I worked at a magazine. Right after I graduated at TSU, was a magazine called Jezebel magazine. And I was an editorial assistant because I graduated in mass communications from Tennessee State. So at that time, I wanted to be either a news anchor or a broadcaster or a writer. And so I was hired as an editorial assistant. And I'll never forget my editor. Her name is Beth Weitzman. I don't know if she's still at Jezebel or not. But anyway, in Atlanta, I was the editorial assistant and writer. And I was brokering deals, and I realized that's where I really learned how to broker deals.
Sales, not yet.
Sales and all that, and then also finding the editorial, so Beth would say, hey, we're gonna do this story on this new singer, this upcoming singer, indie singer in Atlanta, and here, we wanna do a whole, 2 full pages on her, and we gotta set up the story. So, Stacey, go find out where we're gonna shoot her, do the photo shoot. And then I also need you to help me get an outfit for her, a wardrobe. And then, so I would have to say, and I said, how am I gonna do this? And it's like, go find the stylist and tell her what you're gonna do. Oh, but the stylist, they want to be paid. And we're not gonna pay. Just tell her that her work will be featured in the magazine. So I had to end up kind of bartering and selling stuff that's I'm pulling stuff out of thin air. And I'm like, how do I do this? But I learned how to say, hey, I remember her name was Tamika Foster. She's a famous stylist now, but I had to go to her and say, hey, Tamika, your work is gonna be on the cover of Jezebel magazine and blah, blah, blah. And can you just get us 5 outfits? She's like, 5? We need some Gucci, we need some Louis Vuitton, we need a bag, we need to go to Saks Fifth Avenue and grab this. And they'd be like, okay, well, you go to Saks Fifth Avenue. Okay. Hello, I'm Stacey, Saks Fifth Avenue. Can we get, so I had to broker so many deals, and I felt like, how is this all going to work out? How are these people going to get, their value from this? And it all ended up beautiful. It all ended up well. And so I think that's where I really learned to bring a lot of moving parts together to make them look as messy as behind the scenes, but in front of everybody else, it looked amazing. And Atlanta really taught me how to grind. Atlanta, you had to get it, and people were willing to work with you. A lot of celebrities have accessibility there. I remember walking up to Puff Daddy. I could walk up to him and just talk to him in Atlanta, but if I was in New York, I couldn't walk up to him in New York. So it was, Atlanta really taught me, Jezebel magazine taught me how to take almost nothing and come up with just the most beautiful photo shoot ever.
That's great. Such great experience. Sometimes we don't realize what we're learning when we're learning it. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Well, this has been it's been a delight to have you with us tonight. Yeah. And I'm sure I took away so much from what you had to say, and I'm sure our listeners and the folks here tonight have really enjoyed hearing it too.
Yes.
We thank you so much for having us. I just really appreciate this platform. It's not often that we get to sit in front of audiences like this and tell our story. The storytelling part is crucial, and to have people that are even interested in your story, I never take that for granted. And this business is hard, and so when you have people that are willing to listen and support you, that's a gem. To me, it's just like being on the nightly news or CBS or NBC. It's just as valuable. So we really appreciate that.
Yes.
Great
Thank
story.
you all so much. Let's go cheers now, I think.
Yes.